Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel Sawani, a spiritual medium, ascension guide, and intuitive coach. And today I'm going to be bringing forward John Lennon to share some messages with us about the ways that he is helping us on the other side, helping our ascension process, and he'll also be sharing some of his perspectives, wisdom, and interest in the cause that we are all essentially here to draw awareness to, which is the Great Awakening and everything that comes with that in terms of the ways that we are shifting and changing on a collective and global level. So most people are familiar with John Lennon, his story. He was a legend in the music industry, a cultural icon as well. And so today's video is mostly going to focus on what his message is for us today. It's not going to focus on too much about his personal life or life story or even the manner around his death or circumstances around his death, but I really feel he's here today to share a higher message with us that is going to help us all understand our role in raising consciousness, raising vibrations, and what is actually going on in the world that we need to be a little bit more aware of so that we can be stronger in our own efforts to create peace and harmony on earth, which was really one of his higher causes and what he was heavily involved in as a peace activist in his lifetime. So I've been connecting off and on with him since I first asked to bring him forward, and he shared with me a little bit about things that he would like to talk about. And so I do have some notes as well that I'll be referring to here and there. But I wanted to say that this is going to be part one of a part two video. The part two is going to be mostly him answering questions from Patreon members who had some personal and general questions for him. So I'll leave a link to that part two in the descriptions box. But if you are resonating with my content and the channelings I do, please consider joining my Patreon community because I do so much more on there. We do live mediumship circle practices, I do live Q&As, and I offer ascension support group sessions and a lot of things that I'm guided to do specifically for that group and for the purpose of helping everyone in that group align with their higher paths and missions. And I bring forward a lot of unique messages that are exclusive to that community. So there will be a link in the descriptions box if you feel guided to join my Patreon and support me in that way. But before we get into John's message for today, I just want to take a moment to ask him to step forward so I can connect back in with his energy. And yeah, I feel him coming in right now. And so where to start, John? The feeling earlier was like there was no holding back with what he was going to share. It just felt like he was very ready to just kind of get right into it, because I started asking him some questions and he was just coming out with some straight up answers. So the first question I'm going to ask is usually what I start with when I channel all sorts of different guides. And that is, how do you like to help us as a spirit guide? Or how are you helping us right now as a spirit guide? And he's talking about activism, which is like his key purpose. So, very similar to what his mission was here on Earth, he's carrying that mission forward into the other realms in terms of the causes that he fought for here are the causes that he's fighting for over there. And it's really about truth, justice, and freedom for all. Freedom to speak your truth, freedom to feel empowered, freedom to stand up for what you believe in, for what is right, freedom to co-create together a world of unity and harmony, harmonic balance. He's saying balance is very important, bringing in the higher qualities of the divine masculine and divine feminine, bringing those into accord within, and also helping to co-create a unified army is what he's saying, is really what his purpose and role has been working on the other side. So he's been actively working on building a collective, unified army of light workers or soldiers of light workers, and he considers himself very much a soldier in this fight for truth, freedom, and justice, and the higher cause, which is genuine freedom from tyranny, is what he's saying, from social injustice, from political unrest. And so he's saying public opinion always mattered a lot to him in his life as John Lennon, and controversy. And he mentioned that to me earlier, and so I found that interesting, but he's highlighting it again. Public opinion and controversy is kind of what gave his life meaning and action. It's what it drove him to take action and to take a stand for what he believed in. And so he's really hoping to help you do the same by coming forward, by stepping forward in this way. His goal is to really empower you to stand up for truth and to voice that opinion, to not be afraid to voice that opinion, to stand up for what you know is wrong, to stand up for what, again, your right to create, to co-create heaven on earth, the type of community, spiritual community that you want to live in, which takes into account the higher laws of the divine, the laws of nature, the universal laws. That is what allows us to live within harmony, in oneness. And so he's really helping to carry that message forward. So all of the messages he shared in his songs, he's saying, was really a precursor to this moment of empowerment. And he's talking about what's happening on the collective world stage right now. Everything he fought for, everything he was against in his lifetime at that time in history, it was all a precursor or stepping stone. It was like he's showing it as if like the world, what's happening on the world is happening on the stage right now. The mission he carried out in his lifetime was just a step onto that stage, but it is what helped allow us to be in this position. In other words, it helped to propel us forward onto this trajectory, onto this timeline. So his music carried a really loud voice and message to the masses. And his activism, his political activism, is what really imprinted that on, in his legacy, and even his death, in the manner that he died, the fact that his life was cut short. He was taken earlier than what some would say his time was, before he could really complete his full mission here. It was cut short in that manner, and yet all of those attributes or experiences is what really propelled his message forward even more. It's like it affected a greater community in a more heartfelt way, even more. And so his message is still very strong today in the hearts of those who connect with his music and who remember those times. I believe he's talking about like the 1960s and all that was going on in those times. And I was very young. I was a baby when he was killed on December 8th, 1980. So, I didn't grow up listening to his music or knowing too much about him as a person or as a celebrity or icon in my lifetime. But I can definitely feel and see his presence is still very strong in the community. In fact, that's why I'm bringing him forward, partly because he was the celebrity guide and musician that everyone in my group, my private Facebook group, voted for to hear from next. So, and for good reason. So, going more into that, how are you assisting from the other side? How are you assisting this fight from the other side? Because the feeling of his energy is very much like of a spiritual warrior. He's definitely got a lot of fight and like angst and passion in his energy and his voice. And he's very strong in his divine masculine power, it feels like, on the other side. But he's also saying that there was a lot of misuse and abuse of that divine masculine power while he was here. And there was a lot of turmoil and inner conflicts between his own inner divine feminine and inner divine masculine. Like he was notorious or well known for getting into fits of rage, being abusive towards feminines in his life. And so he was in the process of healing that and really balancing that and getting stronger in his true divine masculine power towards the end of his life. But he was still very wounded in certain ways. The masculinity was wounded within him. And so he carried a strong masculine wound that really also propelled him forward, it feels like, also kind of gave him some of that drive to get angry about what was going on and to really want to feel called to serve the greater cause of bringing peace to the world. So again, an inner conflict, an inner battle going on between him that resulted in him feeling really strongly about needing to bring peace into the world, partly because that was what he needed to heal himself, but also partly because he felt like the world was ready for that change and shift in consciousness. So he was like kind of ahead of his time in a certain sense, but also like the world wasn't fully ready for that at the time, is what he's saying, but mostly because the governments weren't ready to let go of their power and control. And so there's just a lot of controversy there around the ways that he felt he was being controlled in his own sense, or attempted to be made quiet, and in the ways that he could see that level of control against the people, and the ways that the people were being quieted or misled or misguided from speaking up and speaking their own truth. It's like they feared the higher up powers. There was too much fear and insecurity at that time, and instability in the collective at that time, for too many people to really rise up in a way that was needed. And so, serving us on the other side, he's saying, how are you assisting us on the other side? He talked about acts of rebellion, rebel rousing. So he's really like he has a very rebellious nature. It feels like he's out there rallying against fear and injustice. And he was going into the fact that there are different stages that we're in of political unrest and turmoil, that there are certain stages of political unrest and turmoil that we're going to have to go through as a collective before natural divine order fully resets itself, before we fully heal and divine order comes back into balance of political reign. So he was talking about divine order of political reign can be administered through holy acts of light and service to the all. We serve the greater all. The collective armies are unifying and circling in, preparing for the political collapse of politics as we know it. So that is what is happening right now. That is the stage that we're in. That is the stage of, that's what's playing out on the world stage, and that's what we're going to continue to see more of. More political unrest, more chaos in the areas of politics, and a rising up of new powers that are in service to the light, and a rallying of the armies. So he's talking about the armies on the other side, but the feeling is like this is relative to, even those who are in service, who are in duty, in service in the actual military. People are going to start to turn against the system or band together in ways that are going to disempower some of those higher up officials who are kind of controlling these armies for not the higher reasons. So there's many committed acts of treason, he's saying, going on in against country to country or within countries. Their methods are going to backfire, he's saying, because you can't control the masses anymore. They can't control the media. The false media is not able to hold anymore with ground itself very, very much, because people are waking up. People are starting to become aware of the ways they've been lied to and manipulated, in the ways that the media has sought to sort of dumb them down from seeing what's actually going on, in the ways that both sides are kind of playing each other. In other words, in wars and rebellions, there's two sides of the story. There's the one who's the fighter for freedom, and then there's the one who's the rebelling against the system, and or they're both essentially labeling themselves as fighting for freedom. One is like the rebel, and the other side is like creating order, keeping order and peace, and yet they're both fighting within a corrupted system, meaning they're both sides are corrupt in their acts of war. And that's, in a sense, how we've been manipulated to see these acts of violence as coming from a just cause, but when in reality they were just acts of violence to create fear and terror, to bring terror and fear into the countries and the hearts of many. So those who were standing in the fear would rise up and rebel and create more war-torn nations, more smaller factions and groups who are rebelling against the system, but essentially creating more tyranny and more of the old ways of doing things, which is all about war and hasn't really gotten us anywhere in terms of true freedom and rights for humanity. So there's a lot of suffering that he's saying he's talking about the powers that be will be eventually overturned. So these powers that be will eventually show themselves to be manipulative in their manners to control Their hidden agendas will be exposed over time, and that will cause some political unrest and some chaos. But new leaders will emerge that will bring more of the unity in because of the light workers, because that's what the collective desires at this time. And that is what you all are fighting for, essentially, is that greater cause for truth, freedom, and light to prevail in that sense. So, one of the things he mentioned to me earlier that he was concerned with is he described himself as an open and honest man who was concerned with public opinion and controversy. He spoke to me earlier about what is the right, or what is right in the law of man, is what he was really concerned about. What is right in the law of man? Safety and human rights, freedom and justice for all. He described himself as being a little bit misguided by his own fortune and fame. Would you like to clarify anything on that? It's just that fame got the best of him at times, the best of his ego. It really kind of boosted his ego up a lot, and it was like a two-edged sword in a sense. It gave him a lot of power and authority to speak his truth, but it also made it hard for him to really direct his energy in the most purest and authentic way, because he had that ego driven side of himself that was really wanted to be like the best of that he could be, and he really had a drive. It was like a competitive nature to sort of outshine the others, to outshine above the rest, or to stand out above the rest. So he says that was kind of like a double-edged sword for him. And in a lot of ways, he was misguided by his own fame and what he maybe felt like that would bring into his life. That wasn't truly what was fulfilling him in the end. What he began to realize would be more fulfilling was for him to live like truly authentically and purely from the heart. And that's why he fought for peace so much, because again, there was like an inner conflict within him that he felt compelled to sort of correct, like this imbalance within him, in his own masculine pride, that he felt like energetically needed to be corrected. And it was sort of a mirror to the cause that he was fighting for. It was like the inner battle he was dealing with the pride and the ego was part of what caused, was part of what he saw was a cause of the wars, and the was a misdriven or misguided force of egoic power, or need for being right, or need to be in power, or need to be in control, is what he's saying. So there's this aspect to tyranny where it's just very self-serving and very, it's like your own agenda is what matters, and you don't care like who anyone that gets in the way of that is meat for the slaughter, is what he's saying. So when you get into powerful positions like that, you really lose sight of the greater good. What is the greater, what is for the greater, what is the greater cause? What is for the greater good of the all and the collective? And so he's all about serving the greater all. The collective of armies are unifying, is what he was telling me earlier. They're circling in, preparing for the political collapse, the collapse of politics as we know it. I think I just spoke on that. So that's really how he's helping us in that sense. There was a couple specific topics he wanted to talk about, and that's what I'd like to get into now. And one of them was religion. So, yes. So religion, I kind of briefly asked him about like what he wanted to share on that. And then he started coming through with like a full message. So um this is what he said when I asked him earlier about religion, and we'll have him expand upon it now. He said, religion has perverted society's notion of just cause, and it has produced a violent society where people are pushing their morals onto everybody. And so I'm going to tune back into him and see what else would you like to share on religion. That it's corrupt. It's a corrupted system, and it's called for distortion, or it has a distorted effect on the collective consciousness in terms of what is morally correct, what is right, and what is wrong. Religion gives people the feeling of being empowered to act in the name of religion, to carry out crimes, and to essentially enslave people, is what he's saying. It's a system that entraps people and enslaves people in their own victim consciousness mindset, is what he's saying. It's all religions uh, have the capacity to do that, even though all religions carry some universal truth and knowledge within them, hidden within them. It's very symbolic. A lot of the knowledge is taken too literally in terms of how it's assigned meaning, the meaning that's assigned to it. So in the case of religion speaking, in the case of speaking for truth and justice, religion is really the culprit of taking that justice away, of enslaving people in ritualistic behaviors that is not carried out for the highest good of all. He's saying, so many of those ritualistic behaviors, or the ritualism and symbolism, that's my own word, I'm adding symbolism in there, the ritualism behind and meaning and purpose behind the religious factions that are in power today is really to deny people of their right to really see and what is truth, what comes from the heart, what's the higher message of the heart speaking. How is this religion serving the public? Is it creating more division and separation, or is it actually serving the message of Jesus Christ, which was all about unity and oneness in Christ consciousness, and serving your brothers and sisters in a way that is healing for all? And so he's saying, until these inner divine masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves get balanced, and until we negotiate the patterns and repatterning of these of the ways that our inner divine masculine and feminine express themselves through the ways that we treat each other collectively in relationships with one another, and in our relationships with groups of people, so collective groups as in country to country and community to community, race to race, we're really not going to be able to co-create that harmonic, the harmony and balance that's needed to correct, to allow for the corrective measures of natural law and order to take effect. So we really have to be able to look within to see within, like, where those imbalances are. And that's what he really sought to do as an individual in his lifetime as John. He was really beginning to become more self-aware of the pain that he was inflicting upon others in his personal life, and relationships by not having those forces within him that were very strong, balanced. And so he looked to Christ as an example and as a father figure, it feels like, and maybe even a little bit as a savior figure as well. But essentially he's saying when you tune into the religious version of Christ, you really aren't taking on the highest truth about what his mission was and who he really, how he came to serve, essentially, which was to really wake people up, which was really to help people step into their power, not to give their power away through worship or acts of worship, in service to a religious organization or even a greater organization. And he's even calling like people that are in the army, like worshiping like the government and taking the government's word for like, this is what's right. And we're going to go in here and invade this country because we're telling you that we're on the side of the right. But in reality, they're just serving somebody else's agenda. So he's really wanting to point out being careful about whose agenda are you truly serving. Are you serving your own agenda? Are you serving your own power? Are you serving your own truth of what you know is right, what Christ really taught, and do no harm to others? And that really is a sacred vow that needs to be honored and also feared, because when you speak up from that place, when you stand from that place and you stand in your power, he's saying that you really take honorable action. He's saying you act with integrity, you act with honor, you act with service to the all, and you will always be divinely protected in your right to do that. And that is really where the true fight is, in terms of this being like spiritual warfare, in terms of most of what's happening, most of the activity and the warring that's taking place between these different factions is happening behind the scenes. It's happening in realms that we can't see, in ways that we can't visibly see. And yet it's all going to play out on the world stage in the ways that we are being called as individuals to stand up for what we believe in and to choose a side, in the sense to not play the victim anymore, but to actually say no if we don't accept that, or yes for what we do accept and do want to create, and really take action forward. So it's a time of taking action, and being truly in service to others is about taking action to help heal ourselves and help heal each other and help bring harmony and balance back to the world. So that is really his higher purpose, is greater unification of the all. He was telling me earlier that there are many messages through his songs. His songs and lyrics are poetic gifts to the world, and to take the higher meaning and message in his songs to inspire you to really share in this process, like be more active in this process, be more active in how you share your voice, be more active in how you speak your truth, be more active in helping to bring people together, being a point of unity and not a point of division. Be careful with your words and your actions and your deeds. Watch how you are either creating harmony or division in your life, in your personal relationships, how you are either judging other people for wrong actions when you yourself may very well be judging yourself, and not essentially accepting yourself enough and not expressing yourself enough, because you're not allowing yourself to give voice to that higher expression, and you're not living in harmony with that higher truth and knowledge. So he's really talking about sharing the Christ light and really expanding that light. And that is the ways that many of the celebrity guides that I am channeling are called freedom fighters. Amanda Ellis is another medium and channel that brings forward many of the same guides that I channel as well. and she calls them the Heart Squad. Another name would be freedom fighters, because many of them are fighting on the side of freedom and truth, and they're very invested in this cause, because many of them were tied to that when they were on Earth. And he just keeps calling it acts of treason being committed against the American public, he's saying, but I think he means the public in general and through the media. And he was talking about something about that earlier in my notes. So let me just see if I can go back to that. And I think he's also reminding me to talk about one last thing he wanted to mention was the Indigo Revolution. That was one of the topics he wanted to talk about. And he's very much an indigo child. An indigo child of the new revolution and rebellion. He was calling it the Indigo Revolution and rebellion, and that was really what at his time was sparked within him, was this rebellious attitude, this rebellious nature to really rise against the machine, against the tyranny. Excuse me. So I can't find my notes on that, but oh yes, corporate acts of violence is what he was talking about with the Indigo Revolution. He was calling it a revolution of the mind. That's right. He was calling it the Indigo Revolution, a revolution of the mind against corporate acts of violence. The ways these corporations have maintained control of the human mind is really what is entrapping the human soul in a conditioned reality that is very limiting in an individual's ability to create and manifest what they want, the world they want. It's meant to keep you down and again, shame you, keep you quiet, keep you from speaking up. And so his energy is very much against that, in the sense that his energy is very much like rise to the occasion and be that warrior that you have within you, and be that activist that speaks out loud for truth and freedom and for a higher cause. And so it's really been the media's assault on humanity that has kept us very much conditioned in this way. And so, and some of the music that he created even was created from that same place of social conditioning. And he was really attempting to break free of that control. So he felt very manipulated and controlled through the contracts that he had with his own record companies or producers, or the ways that he was kind of being told what to do and what he could and couldn't write. And he felt very limited in his only ability as an artist to produce the music that he wanted to produce. So when he kind of broke out on his own, excuse me, I'm getting that tickle in my throat. When he broke out on his own, when he got with Yoko Ono and they started producing music together, that was really like him kind of coming into a stage in his life where he was really feeling truly free and empowered, more freedom and more empowerment to create the type of music that he wanted to create. And that's where his adventure spirit kind of came in, and his rebel spirit kind of came in, like rebelling a little bit against the ways he felt like he had been kind of kept from being able to produce what he wanted to produce. And so he was feeling more free, but also there was a lot of, he was maybe lacking the public opinion, or the public opinion maybe of the music he was creating wasn't necessarily as loved as what he was doing with the Beatles, but it was more true to what he as an artist wanted to create. So, and his own self-expression. So, since I'm getting the tickle, that's kind of a sign that I am going to wrap up this portion of the channeling. And I will be filming part 2 with him soon. Again, that will be in the descriptions box below. Hope you enjoyed this message. Please be sure to give me a like if you did, and leave a comment also. And please do consider subscribing to my channel, because I do plan on bringing forward more channeled messages like this from other celebrity guides, but also I channel a lot of different guides such as archangels, ascended masters, gods and goddesses, for the purpose of helping us align with our higher selves, mission, purpose, and highest ascension path. Thank you all for joining and watching. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.